I got pregnant for a dying billionaire I met 6 weeks earlier, and his wife tried to have me killed before I could leave the country. My name is Amaka, and I'm the girl who traded a university education for a mop, only to end up in a private jet, pregnant with the last thing a dynasty of greedy women ever wanted to see. His family thought I was disposable, a poor, clueless girl they could use and throw away. But the chief saw something else in me. He saw his last chance at a legacy. He asked me to carry his son, and when I said yes, I became the most dangerous person in that mansion. His wife sent men to steal my documents. His daughter hired thugs to stop me at the airport. I escaped at dawn on a private jet with his heir inside me, and I left behind 5 daughters and a wife who'd rather see me dead than see me inherit what they believed was theirs. If you are hearing my story, it is no longer just mine. It belongs to us now. If any part of it made you feel seen, I beg you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe so I know my story reached you. And tell me in the comments, which part of the world did my story reach you? Let me know where this journey has taken us. Thank you. I took that job because my family was starving, pure and simple. We were in Orile, and things were so bad. My younger brothers needed school fees, and my mother was selling her last clothes just to buy gari. When Mrs. Lola Okafor called me for an interview at that huge house, which smelled like expensive perfume trying to cover up death, I didn't ask questions. I just said yes. Mrs. Lola Okafor looked right through my lies about experience. She wanted someone scared and clueless, and I knew she planned to use me for something, but I didn't care. I needed the money. She interviewed me in a room that could fit 10 of my family's apartment. She didn't smile once. She just sat there looking bored, like she was wasting her time talking to me. She told me my job was simple. Take care of my husband and don't ask questions. She said it like I was buying pure water from a street vendor. It wasn't an interview. It was a demand. She made it clear I was nobody in her house. I just kept my eyes down. I knew I was walking into wahala, but all I could hear was my little brother asking for school fees. That job was my only focus. I met Chief Nnamdi Okafor on my first day. He was in bed, lying flat, looking so thin. His skin was grey. The cancer was really eating him alive. He looked like he was already half gone, but his eyes, those eyes were still sharp. When he looked at me, I felt strange, like he was searching for something I didn't know I had. He didn't ask me about my skills, he just asked me my name. I felt sorry for him right away. He was a billionaire, but he was trapped in that room, just waiting. I thought, this man has all the money in the world, and he can't buy one more minute of life. The daughters appeared one by one. Adeaze, the firstborn, treated me like I was furniture. She wouldn't look up from her phone. She would just snap her fingers and demand things like I was a dog. Kemi was always on her phone, filming herself, posting about her fabulous life. Zainab was the sneakiest one. She watched everything I did like a hawk, waiting for me to make a mistake so she could report it to her mother. They were all beautiful, but they were so mean. I realized quickly they weren't just spoiled, they were actively looking for trouble. Funke, the 4th daughter, was the cruelest. On my second day, I was bringing the chief his medicine when she saw me. She looked at me up and down and called me a gold digger. She said it so loud. I was confused. I didn't even know where the gold was. She laughed and said girls like me from the slums always had plans. I didn't understand what plans she thought I had, but her words felt like dirty water thrown in my face. It was the first time I realized how much they despised me just for being poor and being there. Chika, the youngest daughter, was sick too. She had stage 4 cancer. She was thin and weak, and I really felt bad for her. But even her pain didn't make her kind. The chemotherapy made her sick, and she would vomit in her bathroom almost every day. She'd ring the bell and scream for me to clean it immediately, like I was a dog. The smell was terrible, but I cleaned it quickly, holding my breath. She never said thank you. I realized that wealth and sickness didn't change the rotten heart inside. Nobody in that house treated the chief like a human being. Mrs. Lola would check on him for 5 minutes in the morning, then disappear. The daughters walked past his room without even knocking. I watched them during family dinners. They talked about his properties and bank accounts like he was already dead, right there at the table. It made me feel sick. They were vultures, just waiting for the feast to begin. It was shocking to see so much money sitting next to so much emptiness and lack of respect. I started spending more time with the chief because no one else would. My job was just to care for him, so I stayed. I'd read the newspapers to him and bring him water before he even asked. Sometimes I would just sit there when he couldn't sleep. He started talking to me, slowly. He didn't talk about business. He talked about his life and his regrets. I realized I was the only person in that huge house who saw him, not his money. He felt so lonely, and I was lonely too. He started telling me about his life, about his businesses, the huge real estate empire he built from nothing, the investments across 3 countries. Then he told me his biggest regret: no son to carry his name. He said his father had told him, "A man without a son is not complete." He said it with such pain that I felt it in my chest. He was obsessed with his legacy. He had all those billions, but he was afraid his name would disappear when he died. That was the wahala that was eating him alive. One afternoon, Zainab decided to cause trouble. She set me up. She told me to make tea for the chief a certain way, very specific instructions. I did it exactly right, but she ran to her mother. Mrs. Lola came out, took 1 sip, and slapped the cup out of my hand. The hot tea splashed everywhere. She was shouting that I was trying to poison her. The chief wasn't there, so I couldn't defend myself. I cleaned the mess and cried in the kitchen, alone. It was pure cruelty, and they enjoyed watching me suffer. Adaesi started sending me on ridiculous errands after that. She'd tell me to go buy her specific imported chocolate from ShopRite that was far away. Or she'd say, "Go get my dress from the tailor in Lekki." The tasks weren't just long, they were cruel. She'd give me transport money that was never enough, knowing I'd have to walk part of the way home in the hot sun. It was just a game to make me feel small, to remind me I was less than them. My feet would ache from walking everywhere for her. Kemi used me as her filming assistant almost every day. She'd make me hold these bright ring lights for hours while she recorded videos about her fabulous life. She wouldn't even let me breathe. Once she was talking to her phone camera, mocking poor people and how they dress. I was standing right behind the camera, holding the light steady. I felt the burn in my arms and the shame in my heart. She had no idea how terrible she sounded, or how close she was to someone who was actually poor. It was like she lived in a different universe. The chief noticed something one day. My WAEC results certificate fell from my bag when I was helping him. He picked it up and stared at it. It had 8 A's. He looked at me differently after that. He looked at me like I was smart, not just a maid. He asked me straight up, why wasn't I in university? It was the first time an employer had ever asked me a question that mattered. It felt good that someone saw past the apron I wore. I told him the truth about everything.
My father died and my mother couldn't afford the school fees anymore. My younger brothers needed to eat, so I had to stop. The chief went quiet for a long, long time. He looked so sad. Then he finally spoke. He shook his head and said, "Intelligence trapped by poverty. What a waste." That comment hit me hard because it was the truth. It made me realize that even a billionaire could understand what it meant to struggle and lose hope. The chief didn't just feel sorry for me, he actually started teaching me things. He taught me how to read financial statements and how to negotiate business deals. He showed me how to spot lies. His daughters never visited during these lessons. They didn't care what he did as long as he stayed alive long enough for them to collect their money. I was like his secret student. He was sharing his whole life's work with me, a maid, because he knew his own children weren't ready to listen. One evening, the chief called a family meeting. Everyone gathered in the sitting room looking so annoyed. He told them straight that he was ashamed of how they treated me. He said I was special to him and they were all forbidden from giving me orders or mistreating me again. Then he gave them the threat. If they messed with me, they'd be cut completely from his will. I stood there terrified, but for the first time, I felt powerful protection. The room exploded immediately. Funke started shouting that I was manipulating their father. Adaese called me a village girl playing games. They were all so angry they looked ready to physically fight me. Mrs. Lola didn't shout, which was worse. Her face turned to ice and she just stared at me hard. I felt like she was planning my funeral right there in the sitting room. I knew then that the war had just started and I was the enemy. After that meeting, the whole house became hell for me. They couldn't give me direct orders, but they made my life miserable in small ways. They would intentionally spill things and leave them for me to clean. They would lock doors I needed to use. They would whisper insults about the maid who thinks she's a princess, just loud enough for me to hear. Every day felt like I was walking through a dangerous minefield. The silence from Mrs. Lola was the worst part. 2 weeks later, the chief called me to his room late at night. He looked terrified and desperate. He told me the doctor said he was dying even faster now. He had maybe 3 months left. Then he said the words that changed my life forever. He said, "I want you to have my child, a son." I felt the floor spin around me. A child? I just stood there, staring at him. He was a dying man asking me to risk everything for his last wish. I thought I heard him wrong, but he explained everything, quickly. He said his wife and daughters were vultures and didn't deserve the empire he built. He wanted a son, a real heir who would carry his name and his values. He looked straight into my eyes and said I was the only person in his whole house who treated him like a human being. He told me it was a contract, a deal for the future of his family name. He needed a child, and I needed a way out of poverty. I said no immediately. I stood up to leave. I couldn't process it. He didn't get angry though. He just asked me to sit down and think about my family. He talked about what that money could do for them, the future I could give my younger brothers. He promised he'd put everything in writing, make it legal so I would be protected. I left his room shaking. I knew this choice was either our greatest salvation or my quickest death. I called my mother that night. I didn't tell her everything, of course, but I asked her what she would do if someone offered us a way out of poverty that was complicated. She listened quietly. Then she said, "Amaka, I've sold everything I own to feed you children." She paused. "If there's a way out and it doesn't kill you, take it." Her words settled it. She was right. I had to choose survival for all of us. I had to go back to the chief. I went back to the chief 3 days later and I said yes. He actually cried. An old billionaire dying of cancer, crying because a poor girl from Orile agreed to give him hope. We signed papers with his lawyer right there. Everything was documented, legal. He told me the lawyer was the only person he trusted in Lagos. I was risking everything, but knowing I had a legal agreement gave me a strange kind of calm. The deal was done. 6 weeks later, I missed my period. I knew it right away. I took a pregnancy test in my room, locked the door, and stared at the 2 lines. Positive. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped that small piece of plastic. I felt scared, trapped, and the danger of the Okafor house felt real for the first time. But I also felt something else. Powerful. That little test meant my life and my family's life had just changed forever. Zainab found the used pregnancy test in my bathroom trash. She ran and showed her mother immediately. Mrs. Lola stormed into my room with all 5 daughters behind her, looking like a judge with a jury. She forced me to take another test right there. When it came back positive, Funke screamed and called me a prostitute. Kemi, of course, was already filming everything on her phone. They were crazy with rage. The thought of losing the inheritance was tearing them apart. They dragged me downstairs and confronted the chief in a mob. Mrs. Lola was screaming about disgrace and homewreckers, yelling that I was trying to trap him. Adaese even threatened to report him to the police. The chief sat there in his wheelchair, looking frail, but completely calm. He just said 3 words. I asked her. That was it. He took all the shame, all the accusations, and shut them up with 1 sentence. The room went completely silent. The chief explained that the baby was his heir and that he asked me to carry the child. He looked directly at them and told them if anything happened to me or the baby, they would all get absolutely nothing, not 1 naira. Funke tried to rush at me screaming, but the chief's security guard blocked her. They realized their feast was over before it even began. Their money was gone. That night, the chief called me again. He looked so worried. He told me I had to leave Nigeria immediately. He said his family was too dangerous and he'd seen the murderous intent in their eyes. He told me he was arranging his private jet to take me to a safe place overseas, far away from Lagos. I would stay there until the baby was born. I was scared, but I knew he was right. If I stayed in that mansion, I wouldn't survive. What I didn't know was that Mrs. Lola had planted a recording device in the chief's room. She heard everything, the whole escape plan. She called people she knew, dangerous people. She sent them to my family's home in Orile to steal all my documents, my birth certificate, my NIN, everything I needed to travel. She thought if I didn't have papers, I'd be stuck. She was trying to trap me on Nigerian soil so they could handle me later. That woman was a snake. Adaese, meanwhile, hired thugs to ambush me. She wanted to stop me before I even reached the airport. The chief security detail found out about the suspicious activity and told him everything. He knew they were actively hunting me now, without shame. He realized he had to change the plan because they were watching the front gate for the driver. His own children were trying to hurt me, and I was carrying his heir. He texted me at 2 a.m. to forget the departure time we discussed. He said I had to leave immediately through the back gate, a different driver was waiting. I grabbed one small bag and ran through the dark compound. I was wearing a simple nightgown, and the cold marble floors felt icy under my bare feet near the chief's room. My heart was pounding so loud, I thought everyone in the house would hear it. I just had to reach that gate. I made it to the private jet terminal just as the sun was rising over Lagos. It was quiet. The plane took off quickly, cutting through the clouds. I looked down and watched my country disappear below me, carrying a billionaire's son inside me. I was safe now, but I knew I'd made enemies who'd never forgive me. I was leaving the poverty of Orile, but I was flying into the biggest wahala of my life. While I was safe overseas, the chief made his final move. He called his trusted lawyer and changed his will completely. Mrs. Lola would get just a little bit. The daughters would split a small portion. But 80% of his entire empire, billions of naira, was put into a trust fund for my son, his heir. He made sure that money was locked down until the boy turned 18. The chief made sure his children wouldn't touch his legacy. 9 months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy in a safe hospital thousands of miles from Nigeria. I held him and I cried, not from sadness, but from pure relief. He was Chief Okafor's son, the heir to billions. But I knew that going home meant war. The vultures were waiting for me in that mansion. I didn't even know if the chief, the man who gave me this dangerous gift, was still alive to see his son's face. That was the last thing I had to find out.